Welcome to Waffles Friends Work, a values-driven leadership and personal development podcast. I'm Kara.
And I'm Jency. We hope you find this podcast both thought-provoking and entertaining as we cover how we all show up for ourselves, in our relationships, and at work.
Since we're only moderately obsessed with shows like Parks and Recreation and Brooklyn Nine-Nine,
and can't stop reading material from Brene Brown and Adam Grant,
you'll get a mix of approaches to thinking about and becoming the person you want to be.
Yeah, that's enough. Let's do it.
All right, welcome back to Waffles Friends Work. We are so excited to be back in the swing of things. It's been a hot minute since we've really recorded and a lot has happened. Most importantly, to the purposes of this podcast, Jency finally watched Ted Lasso, so we can add that to our repertoire of reference pop culture.
Yes. If you haven't watched Ted Lasso, you should go watch it. All right, what are we going to talk about today?
Well, we really started out with the intention of building this whole season around boundaries. We wanted to go from, learning our values and how to live those better into how can we set boundaries to do that. And as you and I were talking, we even recorded a couple episodes on the topic. We started to realize that there are some things we kind of need to lay the foundation on first.
Yeah. It's like we kept backing out. Okay, if you're going to set boundaries, then you need to have this. And then if you have this, and we got all the way back to accountability and that word that I don't think a lot of people knows what it means. How do you hold someone accountable? How do you hold yourself accountable? Why are we holding it? Verbs are weird.
It's an accountability. I'm going to pick it up and hold it. No, and I think while we were talking about that and really researching into the topic, there's a lot of using that word. And we really don't talk about what it looks like. What does this have? Like you said, verbs are weird. But, what does accountability in action actually look like? We want to hold ourselves accountable. We want to hold other people accountable.
And then we want to take accountability. So we're going to take it. We're going to hold it. We're going to throw it. I don't know. Seems like there's a lot of ways you can use accountability.
You can throw people under the bus, which is not taking accountability.
Fair.
But it all comes back to this. We really felt like to set and hold boundaries, we needed to be able to flex some muscles around accountability. And I just thought it was so perfect because that is really what a lot of the themes in the first season of Ted Lasso really were. So we're going to fold that in today. Like the cheese in Schitt's Creek, we're going to fold it in.
I mean, fold it in. There's another verb. It's tricky.
Just fold
it.
Fold it in. So that's how we landed on wanting to talk about accountability. As we started looking into things and researching this topic, we realized there's a lot about getting an accountability partner and having an accountability partner and the importance of having an accountability partner, but there's not a lot that talks about how to do that. And we really wanted to explore this space of how you can do that and show up for yourself. Not necessarily having to have another person that you're reporting to, but showing up for yourself and holding yourself accountable.
Yes. Especially, I think we were talking about setting our own boundaries and setting boundaries with ourselves. And that's really where it came out of was like, well, how do you do that without shame and with holding yourself accountable? So yeah, there were a lot of questions. So I think we can jump in. Let's jump in about accountability partners.
Accountability partners. So that is like literally, if you go Google right now, how can I be more accountable? The first thing that will come up is get yourself an accountability partner. That will be the first thing you Google. You can go try it. It will be the first thing that comes up. And it'll say things like, text your accountability partner or something. But what makes someone a good accountability partner and how could you be a good accountability partner for someone?
Yeah.
The Google search is not as helpful. So we came up with
Maybe we should have asked ChatGPT or asked ChatGPT if it will be our accountability partner.
It would. Sure it would. But Jency, what about you? What has made a good accountability partner for you?
So I've had a couple of different experiences. It's funny because it's Ted Lasso and he's like a coach. But I was thinking specifically about coaches. I have worked with some like personal coaches, nutrition coaches, life coach, weightlifting coach, roller derby coach, lots of different kinds of coaches. But essentially what is a coach? A coach is your accountability partner. And a lot of times you're just paying them to be your accountability partner. They check in with you every week. They help you set goals. They give you ideas. And if you think about the coaches that you've had and the ones that are, sort of dictatorial, sounds like a dirty word, or shaming, it's just not as effective as somebody who is really trying to help you solve problems and is on your team to figure out why are there barriers? How do we remove them? How do we keep moving forward? I had a nutrition coach when I was going through my divorce, and I had hired her before all the things started happening because I wanted to dial in my nutrition as an athlete. And as things started progressing and things started falling apart and the wheels in my life started falling off, she really became this accountability partner to help me take care of myself. Every week she would check in and see how I'm doing. I was having trouble eating, so we were solving problems like what's fast, what's healthy, and really helping me feel like I had a teammate in solving those problems and not that I had to do it by myself or that I had to feel bad about what I wasn't getting done.
Yeah, that's a great example. And I think, wow, I'm already beating the Ted Lasso horse to death, or the dead Ted Lasso horse to death. But that's one of his big things that he's credited for in that first season is that whole speech about being curious instead of judgmental. And when that accountability partner or that coach comes in curious, trying to figure out what the actual problem that you're trying to solve is instead of judging you for not solving the problem, they can get down to what the root causes are and support through whatever it is to help actually get the outcomes that you were both trying to reach.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that curiosity piece. Curiosity solves a lot of problems if we can just ask more questions and make fewer assumptions.
Just, I mean, I'm not saying like we have to ask a million questions, but just a couple.
What do you mean you don't have to be like a 2-year-old and ask why,
Yeah.
why? It's
Yeah,
coming for you. I think that number 2 is going to be a big question asker in your house.
I think so too, but Eleanor's still a big why, but I think she just does it at this point because she knows it bugs me. So I think where we really like found this space of accountability was, as you mentioned, this setting boundaries for yourself. So in the idea of setting boundaries, we talk about, you have to create these consequences that happen, but the only person that can hold you accountable for that is yourself. Well, what if, just an idea here, you became your own accountability partner? And instead of having to report to another person, we take some of those ideas of what makes a great accountability partner and we just apply them to ourselves. Is that possible?
I mean, I think it's possible. It just makes me feel maybe like I have a split personality or something.
Maybe that's the way to do it. Maybe it's like you're wearing two hats. Okay, this is accountability hat.
My therapist has literally had me do that. Not wear 2 hats, but like have 2 parts of a conversation with myself. She's like, okay, now move. Now sit over there. Now you're the other person, but you're still yourself.
It's like those TikToks that has like filmed from two angles. You're just, it's the same person, but you're just filming.
In person. All right. So, and I think, I mean, as we talk about boundaries and as we talk about being our own accountability partner, what comes to mind to me is the effort that it takes to be that on top of it. Like you have to have some level of emotional honesty, which means that you have to be in tune with your feelings a little bit, which is scary for some people. I'm not going to name names, they might be in the room. Um, and something that I've been personally working on quite a bit the last couple of months with my own therapist is finding that emotional bandwidth. And why don't we have the energy or the bandwidth to do the things that we want to do and hold ourselves accountable for those things that we say we want to do, but we're not doing, like going to the gym.
Yeah. So what you're saying is there's some emotional labor in accountability.
Yeah, unfortunately, it comes down to that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. You mentioned that you've been working on this, and this is an area that I'm realizing I don't know a lot about, but what does emotional bandwidth look like? What drains that and how do you free it up?
That's a good question. I mean, there's lots of different ways to think about it. Not to steal this from the folks who have chronic illness, but a lot of times they talk about it as spoons. And in every day, you only have so many spoons to give. And it's not necessarily a unit of time, it's this amount of energy that you have. Some people say like a bucket. Like I'm going to fill my bucket instead of empty it. And that's kind of how I think about it is a bucket or a battery. Sometimes when we feel busy, and I think we talked about this in our holiday episode actually, when we feel busy, sometimes that's a good busy and it doesn't drain our battery, but sometimes it's a bad busy and then it drains our battery a lot.
Yes, absolutely. I really like the visual of a battery. It's like when you're at Disney World and your phone is about to die, and so you start getting really particular about what you are using your phone for. Maybe you're not going to try to snag every Pokestop that you pass while you're waiting in line because that will eat your battery really quickly. But it takes a while. It's not as obvious. We don't have, screen time report at the end of the day telling us where our emotional bandwidth was drained.
It'd be so awesome. Oh my
But
gosh,
we
that'd be an amazing report.
app idea. Someone smarter than me make that.
Someone
Um,
plug into my Slack at work and tell me where I'm spending too much.
right? But we can start learning that. And I think that goes back to the emotional honesty piece is recognizing what is a Pokemon Go level battery drainer and what is like, I don't know, what's an app that does
Navigation.
navigation or the calculator app. I don't know. Something that doesn't drain a whole lot.
Hey, I just had a thought. It's something about like if you know what your personal values are, that might help you root out the things that are draining your battery.
We did talk about that once 2 years ago.
I mean, it's been a minute.
It's been a minute, but it has been such a part of my life for those last 2 years. I'm not gonna lie. I don't mean to overinflate the work that we did in that season, but it has really helped me recognize where some of those drains are. And when I'm falling out of alignment with those values, that drains me way faster than
Yeah, and I think it goes the other way too. Like a lot of times if I'm feeling stuck or I'm feeling like my emotional battery is drained, I will participate in activities that are neutral, that aren't recharging and aren't draining. They're just neutral. So, okay, I need to do something that's going to charge. I'm going to do something that's going to fill my cup.
yeah. And now we're back again to that emotional honesty piece. And that part is so hard for me. And I think it's hard for a lot of us. I think, especially as women, we're kind of conditioned to put our feelings and our emotions last. And so even learning how to recognize them and whatever, like that is a skill that I'm still working on developing. What is this feeling? What does it mean? What data is it sending me? And I think that deeply impacts how we hold ourselves accountable.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that is the baby step and it takes practice. And yeah, it's something that I'm still working on. Some things that have helped me kind of get in touch with that are to think about my body and what my body is saying and take my brain out of the equation. Because my brain thinks it's smart, but it is actually dumb. Like right now, I'm really hungry, and my brain is like, no, this is fine. We're just going to keep working, blah, 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 blah. And my body is like, no, hello. Also, could you drink some water?
Not Diet Coke.
Not Diet Coke. No, I don't even have any in my house right now. No, I don't.
So
No, I love Diet Coke. I'm not going to shame that. But water is good for you. The other one that works is thinking about yourself as a child. Like I literally put a picture of me at 5 years old on my refrigerator so that I would remember to feed her lunch because she's hungry.
Oh, I love that. Especially because 5-year-old Jitsi is so cute.
She is so cute and she wants her lunch and chocolate milk, actually. So, I mean, it helps if we get out of, like you said, especially women, especially moms, you get out of that mindset of putting everyone else first. If you can think about, we would do anything for our kids. And so if we can think about ourselves as a child, it goes a lot further than thinking about boring 43-year-old me.
Yeah. Weird but effective.
I mean, it's not perfect, but it actually really helps. The picture helps. I'm like, oh, she needs water. She needs to go to bed.
I think of myself as a houseplant. Water and
Like
sunlight.
I
Just
like that too. And
love it.
limited screen time.
Yes. Yes.
All right. So we're talking about emotional honesty. This is a tricky one. I would encourage people to not think too much about not getting caught up in naming the exact feeling or thinking about what it's coming from. I think you said it. It's what is it trying to tell me is
Yeah.
more important than those other details, because then I think we start overanalyzing and overthinking and we try then our next tactic to avoid it is to do all those things instead of just feeling it and letting it move through our body. So,
Yes.
yeah.
One feeling, though, that I think we've talked a lot about, and especially around accountability, is shame. And I think learning to recognize and name that one can be a really helpful tool in learning
Yeah, and
to.
the lengths that you're going to go to avoid feeling it. There's a lot of things that we do as humans to avoid feeling shame.
Yes. And so if we shame ourselves for not following through on something we said, the lesson we are teaching ourselves is to just not make commitments to ourselves anymore, because then we can avoid the shame that we will feel after. So we want to kind of dismantle that cycle to become productive accountability partners for ourselves. Instead of shame, what is something that we can do? And that's where we're talking about applying these practices of being a good accountability partner. Instead of shame, what if we started to be a little bit more compassionate to ourselves and we ask the question, why? Why didn't I get that thing done today that I said I was going to do? And now, again, we don't have to be the 5-year-old that asks it 8 times, but once or twice to really see, like, I did not have the emotional, physical, or even mental battery power to do that today. And why didn't I have that? Because I spent it all trying to solve this giant work problem or this little work problem that everybody decided was big when it really wasn't actually.
Or driving in the snow.
Driving in the snow, it stresses me out so much.
Stresses me out to the point that I moved to California so I don't have to do it.
Yeah,
So,
noted. I will try really hard to do
yeah, I think
next year.
it's a solution. Um, okay, so and this is how this is the whole conversation of how we ended up here talking about accountability. It's like, okay, well, how do you hold yourself accountable without shame? And we talk about excuses, like making excuses to ourselves, because we do that a lot, just like justifying why we didn't do that thing or whatever it is. And then we got to this, okay, well, let's say you have a coach or your own coach, and but you have reasons. You have good reasons. So what are the differences between reasons? This didn't happen because there was a huge accident on I-15 and it took me, 60 more minutes to get home than I thought it would, and an excuse that you make that's just like, oh, I was too tired.
Honestly, I think the difference between those two things is like how honest you are actually being. Because an excuse and a reason could be the exact same thing, right? It could be the exact same answer for both of those questions. It depends on what the intent is. Is the intent to avoid accountability for it or to embrace the accountability for it? And I think a really great example of this is toward the end of the first season of Ted Lasso when Rebecca comes clean. Sorry, spoiler alert, if you have not watched Ted Lasso, I apologize. I just said that without any regard to if you haven't watched it yet. So, apologies. But Rebecca comes clean to Ted about this terrible thing she has done to him. And she comes in, well, after a false start, that is one of my favorite scenes in television. She comes in, head held high, admitting that she did something incredibly terrible. And what stands out to me about that, and what shows me that it's a reason and not an excuse, when she says, she's been going through this really hard time and wanted to ruin Rupert's life, she says, if you want to go to the press, if you want to go fire or quit, whatever you want to do, I support you in that. And that shows that she's coming in ready to accept the consequences. And that to me shows the ownership and accountability that makes her clarifying why she did the thing she did a reason and not an excuse.
Hmm. I think that it seems like a little thing to sort of try to separate those and parse those out between reasons and excuses. But I think it's another way that we can keep ourselves honest is if the first question is why didn't this get done or why did I do it this way? And then you have the answer to that question and it's like, okay, well, is that a reason or excuse? And then think about, am I giving a reason and it's a reason and I'm going to solve for that? or
Yeah.
is it just an excuse that I'm making?
Yes. Why I made a deal with myself that I was going to make dinner tonight and not order it from DoorDash. I did order it from DoorDash. This is not today's example, but it was yesterday's. Why did I do that or not do what I said I was going to do? The excuse could be I didn't have time, which is true. Thursdays are awful for me. I didn't have time. The reason might actually be I just really didn't want to. Like I don't know. That makes sense? Like
Yeah, no, I get it, and here's the difference. Because I think if you're really honest and you say to yourself, oh, I just really didn't want to, then you're solving for a different problem than I didn't have time. Because if you didn't want to, then you're going to do different things. If you say I didn't have time, the first thing I thought of was like, well, you could meal prep and you could have things in the freezer so that when there's those nights that you don't want to cook, you can throw something da 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 da. And then I thought, no, because when it comes to the end of the workday and I'm really tired and I have really convenient food in the fridge already, all I have to do is heat it up. Sometimes I still just don't want to do that. And that's
we
just
don't.
reality. So when we're honest, we can actually solve for the issue and then give ourselves grace. Okay, I just didn't want to. Like I don't know how to solve that problem. I just didn't want to. Maybe the solution to that is ask our partner or kids if they want to make dinner. And if they don't, then geez, just order the food or
Yeah.
eat cereal for dinner, whatever.
Yeah. Like if I had a friend come to me and say, "Oh, I just really didn't want to make dinner tonight," I'd be like, "Good for you. You should order DoorDash. You deserve it." How can I, without being overly permissive, extend myself that grace and compassion and say, not every night we're gonna have the energy and bandwidth or desire to make anything for dinner. And on those days, we can budget and make accommodations to treat yourself every once in a while. This is not an every day, every night thing, but guilting and shaming ourselves for not wanting to do the thing is not the recipe to success.
Oh, maybe that's probably why I go to therapy. I've been trying that method for over 40 years and it has not worked yet. So thankfully, we're trying some new things. And it involves being very gentle and being honest and setting realistic expectations and holding myself accountable in ways that change the narrative to why I want to do those things, why those things are important to me, and what are the consequences if I don't do them. It just makes such a big difference in how you see those things, and I think in your success going forward. In if it's starting a new habit or if it's something you want to add to your, something that you want to do it, you want to go for a walk every day after work, whatever it is. When you're gentle and kind to yourself, you're more likely to keep doing that thing than if you just feel really awful about it.
Yeah. Okay. So you talked about like putting your child self on the fridge to make sure you feed her. And I know this is a thing in a lot of therapy practices to like reparent yourself. I haven't had the personal experience, but now becoming a parent and really learning what this like gentle parent movement is. And I know that that terminology is
It's
controversial
been
for some
co-op.
reason.
Well,
Yeah.
it's been co-opted just like therapy speak, right? People
Yes.
have weaponized it and are intentionally misunderstanding it.
Yes. And the thesis of gentle parenting, which people misinterpret as permissive parenting, but the thesis of gentle parenting is really outlining what natural consequences happen when kids do things and then supporting them through those consequences. And I think we can do that for our own accountability, right? Like if I order DoorDash every night instead of making dinner for myself, my budget will deeply suffer and will limit me from being able to do the big things I want to do, the vacations I want to save up for, the student loans that I really want to pay off someday. Maybe I wouldn't say I want to, but
For the
it
other priorities that you
the
have.
other priorities that I have that I want to do and recognizing what those consequences are and actually outlining the steps in that and doing that with grace rather than you're so dumb. Why did you order DoorDash again?
You screwed
When
up again.
you screwed up again. That's not as impactful as outlining those consequences for myself.
Well, I was thinking about this a little bit earlier, and I don't think that our parents did this, but I think the generation prior really relied on that shame as their parenting, like their main parenting technique was
Yeah.
to shame you. That's how they taught kids at school. That's how they parented. Everything was around making you feel shame. And I think we're still suffering some of the generational consequences of that. And I think there are some, pockets of cultures in the world, not just the US, where that is still the MO is shame. I think about religion, which I don't want to name any specific religions, but like shame is a hard emotion that I think a lot of religious leaders try to impose. Like you're supposed to feel ashamed. You're supposed to feel shame about what you've done. And um, maybe they should take some gentle parenting courses
Yes, or read Brene Brown.
or read Brene Brown, which, by the way, we haven't said yet. But if you want to learn about shame and you want to get into what shame is and how it feels and the damage that it does, we both highly recommend reading anything Brene Brown wrote, watching any of her TED Talks. She has done years of research on shame itself, which is just really interesting. But she has a really unique and deep perspective on shame that has, I mean, I don't want to be like hyperbolic, but it has changed my life. Like it has changed my outlook on shame
Right?
and how I parent my kids and how I coach people at work. Like shame is, it's like a flesh-eating bacteria. Like you want to avoid it as much as possible.
Yeah. I can't remember. I listened to a podcast once where she was explaining her TED Talk um, on shame blew up overnight. It like hit hundreds of millions of users or tens of millions of views, whatever. A lot of views. And she proposed that that was probably because it so deeply resonated with so many people who had never been given that language before. And I would say that's my personal experience with it is now that I know what that is and have a few tools to recognize and what to do with that, it has helped me work through a lot of, I don't know, deprogramming a lot of that shame. And I
Yeah,
think you're right.
yeah,
I don't attribute that to my parents necessarily, but I definitely see the effects of that generational structure in anyone that I interact with that was parented by that generation. I think there's a lot of shame-based residual effects that
yeah,
I've been able to
yeah.
be more graceful with them about because I understand that, and more graceful with myself because I understand.
Yeah, I think that's a huge one. When we understand shame better, we can understand why people may be acting the way that they are or why they're reacting in certain ways, why they might not like your boundaries.
Yeah,
Sh- All right. What else did we want to talk about? We talked about boundaries a little bit.
we did,
Uh,
and I think that's really what we wanted. What my motivation was is I think in its essence, when you look up how do you hold yourself accountable on the internet, and the first thing they say is get an accountability partner, I actually honestly think the root of that is shame. That if you have to show up for somebody else, you will feel shame if you don't. You want to make sure
oof.
that you're showing up for that person. You want to make sure that they are perceiving you the way you want them to perceive you. And I think there is real power in reclaiming that for yourself. And instead of needing another person to motivate you to do the things you want to do, what if you got to be that for yourself? And I think that is less shame based than accountability partner. I'm not trying to shame having an accountability partner. Please don't misinterpret. I think it's very powerful. Jency, you've been an incredible one for me. And I've really benefited from a lot of great accountability partners. But but what if we could shift that and use some of those great tools of curiosity and compassion and applied it to holding ourselves accountable? I think that is what will set you up for success in setting and enforcing boundaries, in reaching the goals you want to reach, and I mean ultimately being the person you want you want to be, not the person you feel like you should be.
Oof. I really like that perspective. And I think the difference is like you shouldn't have to feel like you have to go outside of yourself to do the things that you want to do, right? And there's a time and a place for all of those things. And I've had lots of accountability partners over the years. I've paid for many accountability partners over the years. Um, but, and sometimes you need that. Sometimes,
Yeah.
like when I was talking about my nutrition coach through my divorce, like I didn't have the emotional bandwidth to help myself get through that situation, right? Like I just didn't have it. So sometimes you have to go outside of yourself so that you can get through that rough spot. But ultimately, How powerful is it when you know you can depend on yourself? Whoa, that's so deep.
It really is, and it's not something I'm good at. I say that I wanted to come into this conversation with like, but it is a what if for me. I don't rely on myself for a lot of things. I'm working on it, and part of that is recognizing, my brain doesn't work the way that I think it should or the way I want it to, and so that can be really frustrating, but leaning in and loving those parts of me and the whole thing and recognizing I'm worth showing up for, and it might be messy and scrappy at first, but I'll get better at it.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I don't know that anyone ever figures it out and gets it perfect. Like, I don't, like, we're not robots, we're humans. So it's always going to be a work in progress. But having those tools and thinking about it that way, I think is really powerful in the way that we, can align ourselves with our values and feel like every day we've done our best.
And the best looks different every day.
Every day, especially in the wintertime.
All right. Well, those were my big takeaways coming into this episode. I have named accountability as a core value of mine or a sub value of mine or whatever. Um, and it has been a value of every organization I've worked for. And I have yet to really come across something that I feel like does it really well. Like that really honestly does accountability well. Now, again, values can be aspirational. It doesn't mean that we're going to get it perfect every single time. Um, but I think, I don't know, maybe accountability is like a corporate word that just we write on paper and we don't embody, but I think there's a lot of power there and trying to step more into that power for myself.
All right. My takeaways from this episode are read or watch Brene Brown, watch Ted Lasso, and probably go to therapy.
Therapy.
Or read a book about that. Like,
Yeah.
there's some really good stuff out there now that even if you haven't been to therapy or don't go to therapy,
Yeah.
um,
We'll include some recs in the show notes for this because I think there's some really good stuff. Brene Brown, obviously we've touted this episode. Kristen Neff is a great researcher on self-compassion, which when I started reading her book, Marco Polo Gentian was like, it is ridiculous that this has to be a book, but it's really good. Why do we need to learn how to be nice to ourselves?
mhm.
So we'll link to some of those resources in the show notes, but I would also, as always, love to hear from you and your experience about being compassionate with yourself, how you're holding yourself accountable, and what boundaries you're trying to set. So hit us up on the socials, and we can start chatting a little bit more about that.
Okay, good. Let's quit. I'm talking through the close.
Still don't know how to end an episode. That's
So we'll just edit it here. We're gonna start the closing music here.
and it fades out, and now it's over.
It's like the orchestra at the Oscars.
Yes. Up
We
your
started
speech.
the music.
Wrap it up. Wrap it up. Yes.